Welcome to the 25th Hour podcast, where successful business owners share their strategies on how they are able to get more accomplished each and every day. Today's guest is Chris Evans, and Chris is a licensed health insurance agent who focuses on working with people to find the best plans to fit their healthcare needs, often during a stressful transition time in their life. Her clients, they might be retiring, they might be moving or starting a business or changing jobs. And she helps these people find the right resources to be healthy and to work to find the uncomplicated health insurance options. So what I love about Chris is that she's real and she is able to look at all this data and all these things and then be able to give you exactly the options that are going to work best for you. Also, what I love about Chris is the conversation that we have here in this episode for you. It's a thing. At some point, your brain just can't remember everything the way that it used to. As you get older, as you get busier, as situations change, it's just harder to keep all that information together. Chris shares how she gets the stuff out of her brain into a place that she can use it so that she doesn't forget it. So sit back, relax, and listen in on some of Chris's strategies. Hi, Chris, and welcome to the 25th Hour podcast. I'm super excited that you're here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Totally my pleasure. And thank you for saying yes. Here we are, end of September. I know in like 2 days, we start your super busy period. So thank you for making the time to share some of your strategies with our guests on what is it that you do to stay in control of your day? Because I know that you juggle a lot of stuff.
I've always had jobs where I've had crisis go one after another, and that's still kind of the case. So I really have to pay attention to how I'm spending my time and block out time, and I don't always do it. I change a lot, like, okay, how can I remember? How can I make sure I follow up with people? I'm using an app that's actually helping me, the to-do list app, because my memory isn't what it used to be. So I write a bunch of stuff down, and that used to be enough. I'd never have to actually find it. I could just write it and then I would remember it. But now that's not always true. And then because my business gets bigger every year, I have to really, this is my first year where I have someone in temporarily during open enrollment. So trying to put together procedures. And when you're the only person, a lot of times you're just doing it and you're not really thinking what you're doing and how much you already know. And so having to really break it down, and I think that's a good thing, because then you make sure you're not doing unnecessary steps or you're leaving out steps.
Right. I had a guest on a couple of weeks ago who shared your processes are great when it's just you. Yeah. But as soon as you bring in one more person, you start to recognize how much info you're carrying in your head. So right. How are you doing that? Like, how are you getting the info from your head into the head of your new staff person?
Right. Well, I wrote it down and then I try to follow it. But that even is a challenge, because if something interrupts me in the middle of following it, then I have to really kind of start over to make sure I'm hitting every step. And that's always been a little bit of a problem for me, to try to make sure I'm breaking it down for someone that doesn't know, the words in the insurance business and then really just, she works in the next room. So we go back and forth and she asks me how to do things and I break it down and I come back and write it down. So I remember to include that in the procedures. So.
Right. Because it can be a lot, especially if it's multi-step. Like it's hard.
Right. Yeah. Fortunately, she has some background in medical billing. So that actually helps. So at least she knows some of the words, and she has a fair amount of computer experience. So it's, we're starting at a good place, but it's just really interesting to have to break it down. And initially, when I wasn't as busy, I wasn't really making, I didn't have a checklist. So I do things in different orders, which I still kind of do, but do things in different order all the time. But now, I have to follow a certain procedure. Otherwise, I will forget a step. So,
right. And so let's talk about the whole forgetting thing, because here's the deal. As we get older, and neither you nor I is old. So let's just put that out on the table right now. But as we get older, or as we get busier, or if we're feeling under the weather, like all of those things add to the inability to keep as much stuff in our brains.
Right.
And so talk to me about the to-do list piece, because I'm right there with you, Chris. I used to be able to write stuff down and that was enough for me.
Right.
But now I have to write it down and then find it and then follow it and mark it off. So talk to me about that transition for you.
Well, it's been a process, because I, just accepting that I couldn't remember things. And, most of the time I remember people, but once in a while, I have no recollection of what my conversation was. So each time that happens, I go, then I know going forward, every conversation I have with people, I need to at least write 1 or 2 words. So I remember that I talked to them and what I said to them, or if I'm supposed to follow up. So it's really been a process, because as I notice I'm not remembering things like I used to, that I just, put more processes in place for that. So
you mentioned an app. What app are you?
I should have had that down, but it's called Actions app, and you can put it's either to-do list, or you can put, it can be a list, or it can be, you pick out a date going forward. And that seems to work pretty well for me. But I still forget to put things in. So, because I still use Google Calendar and stuff like that. But what I noticed I was doing is putting reminders in the calendar all the time, just to remind, call someone. And that's more of a to-do list versus something to put in my calendar that mixes it up on what my free time is. And that.
Right. So what else do you do? Because I know that, again, you juggle 2 businesses, really.
Yeah. It's like I said, it's been an interesting process, because my job before I did insurance was logistics, and I worked at a refinery, and I was always putting out fires. So there wasn't really there was a need to prioritize. I still did projects, but it was just in between when I was doing all the stuff that was going to keep us moving. Mm-hmm. And it's not that different now, but I just, every year I put together new ways to do things that I think I'm saving some time. And I really feel like this year, with having to teach it to someone else, that's been really beneficial to me, because it just it's not all in my head. I'm having to write it down, because I think when it's all in your head, you're going to potentially miss things, but also it's just, when you write it down, it's different. So.
Right. And it's not scalable. If it's all in your head, you're the only one that can do it.
Right.
So what was the tipping point for you to decide, I need to bring someone in for help?
Well, so there was stuff that I knew I could pass along to other people that would save me a lot of time, that was kind of ended up being a little bit more repetitive. And so last year I'd actually hired someone, and she broke her foot. So she couldn't come, she couldn't come in, and I didn't have enough time to go deliver stuff to her. So last year I said, I really have to do it this year. And it's been interesting for me because I realize how many things, it's kind of that thing where you keep everything in your head and you feel like you're better at doing it. And it's really just other people can do it just as well and probably better in some cases. So it's been really eye-opening for me too. I think I can do a lot more in my business when I'm passing some stuff along. And a little bit of the problem, honestly, is sometimes I don't mind doing the clerical stuff because it's repetitive and it kind of just lets me sit there and I know if I pass all that along, then I really have to spend more things that I'm not as comfortable with, like marketing and that kind of stuff. So there's a reluctance in that way too. But if I want to grow my business, it's just the next step that I have to do.
Right. Right. Many times my clients will say, well, I kind of like to do some of that repetitive stuff because it helps me relax. Like It's easy and I get that sense of accomplishment.
Yes.
Right. And I was like, yeah. And could you think of a way you would rather relax than doing repetitive paperwork? Like, I feel like, there's yoga and a bath and like there's all these other options.
Right. It takes a lot less time and you could do it for 5 minutes and get some of that than take a few hours to put stuff in QuickBooks.
Right, exactly. It is almost always QuickBooks. Like they're like, I like doing my books. I like reconcile. I like putting that stuff in. I was like, do you?
Yeah, I know. Or it's a little bit excuse about not doing other things that are not as, that push the envelope a little bit further. Comfort.
I would say get you out of your comfort zone. And,
right. So, I'm admitting that to you.
Well, and
I think it to myself, but it's like, okay, that would just be a better use of my time. So,
and tomorrow, all of a sudden this conversation is going to come back to you and you're going to be like, okay. Let's move.
Forget it. I know.
I remember I said that.
Yeah, I know.
The other thing I'm thinking about as you were sharing is your zone of genius. Like when you think about what is it that you do in your business that you do so well that someone really couldn't replicate.
Right.
Like that's the place where you get to stay when you're willing and able to figure out how to get the stuff that's in your head out of your head to someone else.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what I'm good at, which is why I was good at logistics, what I'm good at is taking in a lot of information, putting it together and spitting it out to someone, and not necessarily like, spreadsheet spitting it out, but being able to talk to someone and assess what they need and taking all the information of the 50 billion different plans that I have to talk to them about and I'm pretty confident I'm giving them at least the best information I think I have. So that's what I can do. I couldn't necessarily do it on day one of opening the business, but I can do it now because every year I learn more and more, and that can't really be replaced.
Exactly. And as someone who's used your services, I totally appreciate your ability to take it all in. And do it very calmly.
Yes. That was always like the ship just got in an accident down the river. It's like, okay, well, I guess we're going to do. So, but that's the stuff I'm good at. Now, if you say I have to, do something that's out of my comfort zone, but that part I'm comfortable with. So,
absolutely. Anything else you're thinking about when it comes to things you've done that have worked well with bringing on a new person on board? So you have some processes. What else is working well there?
Trying to just really breaking down my business and trying to think of more things that I could give her. Like there was an intention initially of certain thing I really needed her to do, but as time goes by, to get someone to help me organize my files, my internal, my computer files they're all there, but it's like, and when you start a business and you're not super, super organized, you just name things. So, you can find them next time, but they're not all named the same. And so really just being able to, that's the kind of stuff that can also help having someone in, helping me out, because someone that likes to kind of make everything the same, or,
Right.
look pretty. I need someone like that. So
Right. We need those people that like to line things up in rows and
right.
columns.
I love that. I know. I love that. And it doesn't bother me at all if people do it. It's just because I don't, it's just not the thing for me. But
right. And when you first start, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So how would you even know what naming mechanisms you would want to use for your files? You're just happy you have a file. I remember when I first started, it was just a whole bunch of documents on the desktop.
I know, right?
You're like, oh, wait a minute, that's not sustainable. At some point I run out of room.
Exactly. Yeah, and I have I have paper files, but I also have a customer CRM, and so I'm not totally comfortable with getting rid of all the paper, but I'm working on making it all computerized. So I'm not having to keep file cabinets of papers that I don't really need. So that's something someone can help me with also too.
Absolutely. I think it's a matter of staying in your zone of genius and then figuring out other things that are not there that someone else can do for you.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about what it is you do. I know I just alluded to it because you were a savior for me a couple months ago, or a year ago. So tell me, what do you do?
So I work, I almost strictly do health insurance, work with, and I work with small businesses. I work with individuals that maybe have their own business or just between jobs. And then I also work with Medicare, the 65 and older, so I can work with them on Medicare plans and show them the choices. And tomorrow starts the Medicare open enrollment. So, early October is when the Medicare open enrollment starts. So I've been immersed in training, and I feel like I'm ready to go this year. And every year the choices for people get a little bit better. So I'm like that. And so I basically work, talk to someone and find out what kind of medical needs they have and what their lifestyle's like, and work with them on kind of trying to find a plan that fits their budget and fits their needs, and will work for them going forward.
And what type of clients are your favorite client?
Well, I'd say small business and people that are retiring. So it's both an exciting time in people's lives, approaching retirement, or you're starting your business. And I can work with people that are just working by themselves, like I've been. And then, when people start hiring professionals, hiring other people that they need, to provide health insurance, and I can work with them while they're growing their business. So that's exciting to me.
And geographic location?
Just mostly in the Cleveland area, though I do have clients that have moved to I'm licensed in North Carolina, Florida, Michigan, Pennsylvania. So I have states, basically if my client moves out of state and it makes sense for them to continue working with them, that's, I usually can get licensed in that state. And so I have I was hoping this year I'd get to see some of those clients when I during my off season, but that has not worked out.
Yes.
COVID. I know.
So next year, hopefully, you can see those clients.
Right. That's what I'm hoping. So, yeah.
And speaking of time to see clients, let's talk about the 25th hour. So as you become more and more and more proficient with delegating things to your new staff member and getting things out of your head and writing them down, what do you do with that extra time?
Well, let's see. I do a couple volunteer things. So I am working as a CASA GAL, so it's a guardian ad litem with the court system. It's a volunteer position, and I just started it this year, so it's been busy. I was hoping to kind of start it earlier earlier in the summer. That didn't quite work out. So that's been fun and learning, and I like doing that. And then I ride my bike a lot, and I haven't been traveling, but I usually like to travel. That would be what I'd love my 25th hour to, free up time with. So,
hey, so how did you get into the guardian ad litem stuff?
I just I read something like just in a novel, and then I heard it was kind of on my radar, and I heard people talking, and I think in a different life, I would have maybe been a social worker. So I thought, I don't want to go back to school now, but this kind of allows me to dabble in it a little bit and, work with the kids, and I like it. So far, it's good. It's been more complicated than I anticipated, but it's been good. And, I've done some classes for kids, meditation and things like that just because it's stressful to be a kid. And so just any kind of tools I can work with them and give them to help them, to just manage their school years at least and going forward.
And you said bike. So is it bicycle or motorcycle?
Bicycle. I've just been doing that a lot this summer, and I'll just get on my, it's just regular bike, and I just get on the bike and ride down. I live in Avon Lake on Lake Road, so I just ride down the lake as far as until I get tired, and I won't think I can go back a few miles. But then I've done some bike, like not races, but bike rides that way, and so just doing a little bit more finding people that like to ride too. So that's been fun.
Well, and it's so beautiful. Like I'm envisioning the route you're talking about.
Yes, it's really nice, and it's flat. So I did another with one of my friends in Cleveland. I started at Edgewater Park, and I went, on the bike path that they've not just done, but it's through Cleveland and all areas, but it's very hilly because it goes under underpasses and over. And it's like, oh, this is I'm used to my Lake Road flat one. And this was definitely more challenging. So,
right. Or it's like going down the towpath and then being like, okay, I'm going to take the train back.
Right. I know. I did that last, or I guess the year before last, but that was a fun thing to do. It's like, okay, and I could do that, but I know there's that end in sight where I can throw my bike on and ride back.
I'm not going to ride back. I'm just going to put it on and take it back.
Yeah. I went, last year I visited Utah, and I thought, I'll just rent a bike. And I was in Park City, and I said, can you tell me a path that doesn't have any hills or very many hills? And they looked at me. It was young people, young kids. And they're looking at me. It's like, lady, you're in Park City. But they did give me a towpath. Basically, that's what it was. It was a railroad path that they said only would be a couple degrees of hills at a time. So it worked.
Oh my goodness. Well, I thank you so much for being on today. I had no idea that you were a guardian ad litem. I know, out of this whole conversation.
Well, I just started it, and this is my first case, and I trained in March, and they had half the training in person, and then they had to go online. So it was, it's been good. So it's challenging, but
yes, but hey, if what is that? If you're not learning, you're dying. Like
I know.
Said that to me the other day.
Well, I was during COVID. I was like, I'm going to take some of these online classes. I do love learning, so it's fun.
Yeah, so fantastic. Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you so very much for being here. Yeah, I appreciate your time again. Yeah. For those of you who are wondering, we are recording this at the very end of September, so I'm one day away from Chris's very, very busy time. So I appreciate you taking the moment today to jump on and share your strategies with us.
Okay, good. Well, thank you, and we'll talk soon.